Hello, bruvs. I've come to the realization that my live stream is not so successful down in the basement here in the summer, so I'm going to go back to doing videos for a while. Popular Entertainments Through the Ages by Samuel McKechnie. As you can see, it's a former library book. I picked it up at back when Schoolcraft College was renovating their library, I guess. I don't recall. But they had a huge sale, and a bunch of books were $1 a piece, so I went and got one. And this is got some, and this is one of them. Joseph Grimaldi in the pantomime Harlequin and Mother Bunch, or the Yellow Dwarf. Popular Entertainment Through the Ages by Samuel McKechnie, Benjamin Blom. Probably should turn off that. It's an odd book in that all the pages are glossy. So I will have some problems with the flash being on, or the light being on. Reissued 1969. Preface. The aim of this book is primarily to provide the general reader with entertainment, and secondarily to offer information to the student. It is hoped, however, that the former will absorb some of the facts and that the latter will enjoy the lighter passages. In other words, an attempt has been made to follow the lead of some high-class popular entertainments. For example, a Chaplin picture which pleases everyone. As this is one of the highest aims which an author can have, I do not venture to imagine or even to hope that entire success has been achieved. Nevertheless, I believe that there is a place for a book which deals with popular entertainments in a popular yet not too undistinguished manner. Whether this happens to be the book or not is a question which the reader will naturally decide for himself. Some of the omissions undoubtedly call for an explanation. In disregarding the theater after the Elizabethan period, except as regards pantomime, and in so far as I make many incidental but by no means unimportant references to plays, I am merely dropping the popular for the more popular. The only alternative would have been to deal in each section with the full history of the particular entertainment concerned. If this had been done, the book would have become a mass of details, and its whole nature would have been altered. I have preferred, as a rule, to deal with each entertainment as it points at its point of greatest vitality, the period in which it was at the height of its popularity. When its popularity began to wane, when it had reached the stage of development at which, broadly speaking, it stands today, or when any other sufficient reason presented itself, the story has been discontinued. One sufficient reason underlies the treatment of the cinema, the story of which has been discontinued except for some remarks upon Chaplin and other artists at a comparatively early period. The reason is that the book confines itself as much as possible to England, and unfortunately it would be impossible to deal with the later cinema without going as far afield as Hollywood. Add to this the facts that the film industry is immense, that unlike pantomime and the other popular entertainments surveyed, films must be divided into various categories, as some of the best and the worst are by no means popular entertainment, and some of the worst and the best are decidedly so, that once we had crossed the boundary separating the early cinema from that of today, there would have been no stopping, otherwise than arbitrarily without coming right down to the latest developments. That the covering of all this ground would have resulted in textbook condensation and comparative inattention to the early films, and there you have what I think is a sufficient justification. I venture to hope, however, that the reader who has an interest in the past, and this is the type to whom the book is clearly meant to appeal, will not be sorry that in this and other cases the volume in the main concerns itself with the past and leaves the present to his own knowledge or imagination. The story of the English circus has been brought right down to the summer of 1931. This has been done for several reasons, one of them being that I wish to seize the opportunity of giving, even in a condensed form, the only account of the English circus that starts with Astley and continues to its recent revival. Another reason is that the circus is the form of entertainment which has most in common with the wandering tumblers, clowns, and bear leaders of the opening pages. It therefore emphasizes the continuity which I have endeavored to depict. The sense of continuity, indeed, has been of paramount importance among the factors which prompted the omission or the inclusion of details. The story of popular entertainment is long, but by determinedly following the mainstream and by pursuing any particular entertainment only as far as was necessary to enable us to understand its salient features, I have tried to keep within sight of the mainstream. Oh no, Flash is disabled so it doesn't overheat. What the flop? Why? And yet, an interesting account of the more important branches. One advantage of this plan is that it brings about condensation without the wearisome appearance of condensation. Oh, that can be seen. For example, a single book which dealt with the rise of the music halls would have to explain about entertainers at the fairs and taverns. Another which dealt with pantomimes would require to cover the same ground. So would one on the circus. In a connected story, however, one description does for all the sections. I have tried to tell a story, but occasionally I have yielded to the temptation to express personal opinions. There is just a possibility that the reader may conclude from some of these that I have little respect for entertainments that appeal to a limited public. It may therefore be desirable. Nope, now we got a shadow. It may be desirable to say that I have spent a good deal of time in encouraging experimental work among amateur and professional actors, but as soon as I hear anyone who is engaged in the production of high-class or intellectual entertainment reviling the general public for its indifference, I am inclined to become impatient. The advanced purveyor of entertainment, as I believe Mr. St. John Irvine has pointed out, has no right to expect the public to welcome him with open arms. The genuine artist survives the test of even fiery criticism, but most of the others succumb and imagine they are sharing the fate which they wrongly believe was met by the poet Keats. One very useful purpose may be served by looking backwards. We may see the necessity for supplying entertainments that are virile, and English. Happily, there is today a strongly marked tendency to cease relying upon foreign entertainments and upon foreign subjects and styles of treatment. We are perhaps recovering the knack of taking things from abroad, absorbing them and making them our own without becoming their slave. In doing so, however, it is very easy to be ungrateful to those who have added to our ability to be independent. In order to make the book interesting, I have taken a considerable risk. I have quoted copiously from famous writers like Chaucer, Shakespeare, Pope, Swift, Hood, and Dickens, have included a large part of Punch and Judy, and have made room for extracts from famous music hall songs. These provide the reader with admittedly interesting writing, with authoritative contemporary descriptions, and with a vivid atmosphere. The drawback from my own point of view is that the original passages will suffer from the inevitable comparison. The Herman Daruski Music Publishing Company very kindly gave me permission to reproduce a considerable quantity of copyright music hall material, from Champagne Charlie, Slap Bean, Slap Bang, Walking in the Zoo, Never Introduce Your Dona to a Pal, Ta-ra-ra, boom-de-ay, ta-ra-ra, boom-de-ay, and The Waiter, for permission to reproduce so large a portion of the words and patter of the last mentioned song. I am particularly grateful. Francis, Day, and Hunter are to be thanked for allowing the reproduction of selections from the Wedding Bells, the Seaside Sultan, and the Lily of Laguna. Many of the reproductions of illustrated song sheets are included by permission of these two firms of publishers. Most of the sheets were obtained on loan from W. Paxton and Company, who kindly placed at my disposal the whole of their world-famous collection of old songs. Some of the scarcest of these are included among the illustrations. Mr. Bertram W. Mills's good nature and that of his sons Cyril and Bernard is well known, and I have had my share of their kindnesses. These were shown to me in more ways than appear in the text and the illustrations. As regards the latter, I was privileged to draw upon Mr. Mills's collection of pictures and photographs, which covers much more than the circus. If picture for picture the illustrations relating to the circus are not better artistically and more representative of the English circus as a whole than any that have hitherto been published in a book, the fault is mine, for I had a wonderful collection at my disposal. The 4 colored illustrations of pantomime subjects are included by Mr. Mills's permission. The father of cinematography in this country, Mr. R. W. Paul, very willingly provided illustrations and information. Any errors in the story of the early cinema are, of course, my own. Mr. J.C. Dallow helped a great deal by photographing illustrations in scarce old books. It is a particular pleasure to acknowledge the existence of the famous French publishers Firmin Didot at Sea, who gave me permission to reproduce from Arthur Pugin's Dictionnaire du Théâtre, 1885, several original pictures and reproductions from old manuscripts. The book is indebted for illustrations to Joseph Strutt's Sports and Pastimes and John Morley's Memoirs of Bartholomew Fair. Mr. Wilson Disher's great book Clowns and Pantomimes must also be mentioned, as a work from which considerable assistance has been obtained. Many other acknowledgments are made elsewhere. Let's check out the colored illustrations. I've read, I think, up to this point, and I tried to read this book several times, but like I said, I have a hard time reading any book unless I'm reading it online, so mostly just because I'll stick with it. That's color? What the fuck kind of color is that? Don't look like color to me, browse. 114. God damn it, that's color. What the hell's black and white? Man, these aren't color. I mean, what are you talking about? Alright, I'm not even going to bother. That's all. Popular entertainments. And hopefully this looks better than my last 2 live streams, which were embarrassing. I didn't even know it, and no one told me. I know the light in my basement is dim, but Jesus Christ. Alright, that's all, bruv.